Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. That was New York Governor Andrew Cuomo accepting the International Emmy Award for his televised COVID-19 briefings. One thing I can tell you with certainty, the man can put on quite a show. For the better part of a year now, we've been subjected to a daily dose of sanctimony from Cuomo. His briefings often take on an accusatory tone as he scolds New Yorkers for failing to adequately follow state dictates, whether it's about masks or social distancing or limiting indoor gatherings. Of course, he doesn't really have to follow his own rules. On Monday, we found out that he planned on hosting his daughters and his 89-year-old mother for Thanksgiving up in Albany after lecturing Americans for weeks about how they need to limit holiday gatherings. Maybe skip Thanksgiving this year. Later in the day, though, Cuomo canceled those plans, not because he's scared of COVID-19 or because he feels bad, but because the hypocrisy was too glaring for the press to cover up. This isn't the first time Cuomo has failed to heed his own advice. The governor's also been busted flouting his own mask mandates on several occasions. Here's Cuomo back in July rubbing elbows with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. This was just days before he called on President Trump to impose a national mask mandate. A month later, Cuomo was busted again, this time for failing to mask up while walking his dog. This phenomenon isn't unique to the New York governor. Over the past few months, we've had example after example of Democratic lawmakers ignoring COVID restrictions that they expect us to follow without question. We had Nancy Pelosi's infamous trip to the hair salon. Remember that one? Then she blamed the lady who ran the hair salon. It was all a trap. It was an ambush of Pelosi. Governor Gavin Newsom's fine dining experience at the French Laundry. Senator Dianne Feinstein walking through Dulles International Airport. No mask. The list goes on and on. Let me tell you something. This is the original sin of Democrats, of socialists, collectivists, people who believe in the plan, in the central plan. They don't really care what they themselves do that violates these dictates because they're all about the virtue and, of course, the power they get from dictating to others. They want the collective. They want the masses, the hoi polloi, the rest, the plebs, to obey these dictates, and they're good people for trying to jam it down your throat. You see this time and again when we're talking about COVID-19. We went through a list. We could go on and on. The people in charge don't think the rules should really apply to them. Their junkets, their trips, their gatherings and birthday parties, are important. How many funerals was John Lewis allowed to have? Oh, and I remember D.C.'s Mayor Bowser just decided that people coming back from Georgia, which had a very high level of COVID cases at that time, and would have required 14 days of quarantine coming back to D.C., but not if you were going to John Lewis's third funeral. No. Then it was fine. Then the virus all of a sudden was no longer a concern because, you see, they were important. We saw this also over the summer. We were being told all across the country, mask up, do your part, social distance. Unless, of course, you're burning down a small business or shattering the glass storefront of a sporting goods store, then all of a sudden it didn't really matter if you were gathering en masse because it was about BLM and saving black lives. That's what they told us. Got to have some riots, got to have mass gatherings, never mind the riots, just a lot of people on the streets. Wasn't all of a sudden a COVID risk. Why was that? That's right, hypocrisy. And this abounds. This is all over the place when you're talking about Democrats and the left. Climate change, another perfect example. John Kerry has been tapped as the new climate change czar, which is fascinating because here's a guy who really understands what it means to engage in climate change personally, as he's constantly flying around the world on private jets, has many yachts, many homes. Do you think he's got a small carbon footprint? This guy puts more CO2 in the air going back and forth between Martha's Vineyard and Boston than you and your family will do in 10 years, but he's going to be the climate change czar because he's going to hold a whole bunch of meetings with other people that are usually arriving for those meetings in their own private jets. But you see, their personal behavior, they really don't think matters. They, in fact, buy the right to be hypocrites by making you suffer under their dictates. See? You're noticing a pattern here, aren't you? It's time we hold these hypocrites to account. It's time we recognize that they're not telling us all these things because it's just for our own benefit. They like the power that they wield. They like being able to break the dictates that they enforce upon all the rest of us. It breaks down our will to resist. If they can tell you, wear a mask, peasant, and you do it, and then you see them not wearing a mask, but you're still expected to do it, what other areas are they allowed to exceed their mandate? Where else will they start to shred the Constitution a little bit, tell you how it's going to be, and you say, sir, yes, sir, whatever you want? That's the attitude that these Democrats, these statists, leftists, collectivists, that's what they want the American people to have overall. They want to use this on climate change. They want to use this on every major policy agenda item you can think of where individual action is called for. Taxes, perfect example. Do you think they want to pay more or less in taxes? The elites, the Davos set, the same people flying around in those private jets to the climate change conferences, do you think that when they're filing their taxes at the end of the year, they're saying, you know what, I want to pay my fair share? Remember when Obama said that? I'm going to pay more. You can always, little known fact, you could always write, it's actually on your forms when you file your taxes, the biggest check you want to the government. Give them 90% of your earnings. John Kerry doesn't need it. Barack Obama doesn't need it. These guys are rich, but they call for increased taxes. Joe Biden, also very rich. And I don't just mean because of the stuff that he might have been getting kicked back from Hunter Biden from the Chinese. I'm talking about the stuff that he's made legally. His speeches, the books that are ghostwritten for him. He's another rich guy. But do you think that he's going to pay the highest possible tax rate? No. That's for you to do. Hypocrisy abounds. It's all over the place with these Democrats. You see it constantly, and they're not even ashamed of it. You see, that's one of the great benefits of this. If you sign on for the policy, if you say, I want the Green New Deal, I want socialized medicine, and then you actually fly around in your private jet, you buy your mansion in Malibu or Martha's Vineyard, big carbon footprint from that, by the way, and you make sure you have access to the best doctors, private doctors, some that won't even take insurance. It's fine, though, because you want what the left wants for the rest of us. The hypocrisy is excused, you see. It's like an indulgence in the medieval Catholic Church. You get the right to break the rules, to be bad, because you're making sure that everybody else is good, even if it's against their will. So remember that as we go into this Thanksgiving. How many of the people that you see on TV, how many of the loudest voices saying that you should skip your Thanksgiving, you should cancel it, are going to do that themselves? Not only that, if and when we catch some of them, and we already have caught so many of them, but if and when we catch some of these lockdown Democrats and their hypocrisy, do you think they'll have one moment where they feel a bit of shame? No, of course not. This is the game they always play. This is who they are. It's how they view everything. Hey Team Buck, just want to say thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more great content from The First, please click that subscribe button.